Welcome to the Fine Print, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, and we're going to redo what we started the other day because me and my guest, we had some connection issues, and I think this is an important conversation that we are going to have to finish here. I want to shout out some of the guests I got coming up here. Kate Corbett from Yellowbird, that's going to be on Monday. Dwayne Harden from Blaze Express, that's going to be the following Monday. I think that's the 30th. Yeah. And I want to thank some of the folks that I just had on, Luke Williams from Omerta. And I know we were having some audio issues too. We're going to give that another rip too, because I love talking to Luke. He's a great guy. D French, the album is All Saints Day. I've been just listening to that obnoxiously way too much. Marty Rollins, Flying High, the great cannabis caper. If you guys are into smuggling stories and shit like that, that's a fucking phenomenal story there. Talvin White out in Illinois, Canna Farm Dispensary. I've really had a blast talking to Talvin. A lot of these social equity guys, which we're going to get into right now. And yeah, so like I got a little bit of a hard stop at 7. I think we're going to squeeze this all in before then. But my guest today, guys, and we tried this again on Monday, didn't work, but he's from Infuzed Productions down in Massachusetts, and we connected on this kind of social equity tip, and he does a lot of events down there too. So please welcome to the show, guys, Michael Thomasson. Whoop, there we go.
Thank you, sir, for having me back, and thank you for being humble about the connection issues. Let's be honest, it was me with a terrible phone and a dying phone, so I appreciate you bringing me back on, and we'll get it right this time.
My pleasure. So let's do the thing here, Michael. If you don't mind, we're going to just kind of start from the top. Will you give us the 5-minute life story, man?
All right, we'll start this from scratch here and try to keep it on the same trajectory. But essentially, born and raised right here in Western Massachusetts, kind of been the cannabis kid all my life, dating way back to even before high school, quite honestly. But started getting into dealing and stuff in the high school years, and learned a lot about growing from my dad, who was also kind of an avid grower here in Massachusetts forever and ever. Sold throughout high school just to make money and hustle and do all that thing. Now, all grown up, got a few kids, continued that journey for a long time, the growing and the selling and all that, right up until my arrest back in 2015. So about 10 years ago, I was raided for what they deemed an illegal grow. Even though technically I was a caregiver in the state of Massachusetts. Story for a little later on. But yeah, arrested for cannabis here in Massachusetts, which then kind of gave me this opportunity where we connected on the social equity front. Ever since my arrest in 2015, started a couple businesses, Infuzed Productions being one of them, Massachusetts Caregivers being another one. I was the third caregiver or fourth caregiver in the state of Massachusetts. So yeah, just been kind of down this cannabis path for many, many years. Now finally getting the opportunity in the legal market with this social equity license. And just as of about 2 weeks ago now, I am provisionally licensed for delivery here in Massachusetts. So very long journey in the weed space, from dealing back in the day to now being on the verge of legal delivery business. So that's about it, man. We'll keep it short and sweet on the recap. But like I said, I appreciate you bringing me back, and let's continue this weed journey.
Mm-hmm. And, I also appreciate you making some more time. Technical difficulties do happen here and there. And I do want to say also, shameless plug, dude, for Old Growth. Man, I'm smoking on some of this pineapple mushroom pizza here. It is fucking phenomenal, guys. And they've been very supportive of the podcast. So shameless shout out to Shane and Jesse from Old Growth. Would you mind telling us about the caregiver program? I know we talked about that last time, but maybe we could recap that as well.
Yeah. So early on in Massachusetts, medical marijuana was the first thing that was legalized, and they started this, medical marijuana caregiver program, and it allowed one person to have one patient that they could legally grow and produce oils for, and essentially be the caregiver of for cannabis. So that became legal, I believe, 2014, 13, somewhere around there in Mass. So I started being a caregiver here for a couple different patients, and that's kind of where it went a little hairy. They let you be a caregiver for one patient, and that just didn't seem right. So most of us caregivers clearly had more than one patient that we were caregiving for. But once I started learning the medicinal side of cannabis and wasn't just into buying and selling as much, it brought me down the path of Rick Simpson oil, RSO. It landed me with a couple different cancer patients that we were treating with RSO over the course of time, and saw some amazing results with that, quite honestly, man. I have pictures on my phone, like I said before, of shrunken tumors that we shrunk with just using cannabis oil. So it's been pretty amazing, learning about the plant through the caregiver program. Never really was into studying and learning throughout school, but it's crazy once you find something that you really are passionate about, how much you truly want to learn about it. So yeah, it's been pretty wild.
And so, Michael, would you tell us, please, what led up to you getting busted? Because it sounded like, you were legally, licensed through the state to be a caregiver. And, that's going to lead us into the social equity talk, which is how we connected originally.
Sure, yeah. Well, as my lawyer likes to say, I often am walking that line of legal and illegal, which I've found a way to do, pretty much my whole life, honestly. So, being a caregiver, yes, there's rules and regulations to what you're allowed to do, where you're allowed to grow. There was no limit on plants per se, although there was a limit of 10 ounces every 60 days is what they determined was the legal amount to grow. What you can get upped when you do have a patient that is high needs. And so I found kind of a loophole in the program that allowed us to grow more than that allotted 10 ounces every 60 days. There's actually a little checkbox when you're applying for a medical marijuana card. Cat's out of the bag now, by the way, everybody, where you can apply for a high needs patient by saying that they're not using the cannabis, that they can only use oils and edibles. And that will actually allow you as the medical marijuana provider or the doctor to up the limit, the legal limit. So I had this patient, we upped the legal limit. I was able to grow a ton of weed, really. Supposedly legally, but where I went wrong, quite honestly, is the building that I had was kind of an old building that was in the business lotted section of town, and so it wasn't necessarily deemed legal grow for a residence, which you would have to be for the medical marijuana program. So I was pushing my luck in this space that I was out. Certainly in the amounts, the police have no idea what equals 10 ounces. They don't know if it's one plant or 100 plants. And it depends how big they are and how much you're budding them out and how many are in flower and all those different things. So, again, I was certainly pushing my limits. Also, at the time, happened to be doing a little shipping, which I got caught with 8 pounds in the mail. And that kind of launched an investigation into me and what I'm doing, which then, led to me being raided and arrested back in 2015 in Whately, Mass, with copious amounts of marijuana and some money and some other undesirable things in the building, which we'll deem personal use items, which I also got in a little trouble for along the way. So all that being said, now here we are 10 years later. That did lead to, yes, this social equity program for myself to be engaged in this. And as of I think 30 days ago or thereabouts, my record is sealed. So I am no longer a 3-time drug felon here in the state of Massachusetts. And now I can kick this license hopefully into gear for delivery.
So I want to ask you 2 questions. The first one is, how did you get your record sealed? Because I've also had some records sealed, which I think is very important for people to hear if they might not know about that. And then I was also wondering, like, what it looks like when you get raided. I don't know which one of those questions you want to take first, but I was going to forget one of them if I didn't ask now.
Gotcha. We'll start with the easy one, which is getting your record sealed. I've been told by lawyers forever to do it. And quite honestly, all you got to do is go to the mass.gov site and search in the search bar, seal your record. And there's a form that you fill out. You submit it back to the state. And within 60 days of me filling that form out, I got a letter back saying my record is sealed. I don't even remember if there was a small fee that I had to pay to submit the paperwork. It might have been $50 or $60. But it was literally that easy. After all these years and 7 years of waiting, obviously, which I didn't realize the 7-year marker after your felonies actually doesn't start until after your probationary period. So it's not when you got released or when you caught your charges. That doesn't start till everything is free and clear from your record in probation. So, what I thought would be 7 years from my arrest date ended up being closer to 9.5 and damn near 10 years down the road. So, little note for anybody who is applying. If you are a felon, they do make you wait. That was the easy one, filling out a form. Now, what does it look like getting raided? I mean, it's kind of everything you heard, everything you've ever seen on TV. There's a swarm of fully armed, fully vested DEA agents from all over. The drug enforcement team is real, and they come in heavy. And they never know what to expect. They don't know if I had a bunch of gums or whatever else in there, which thank God I didn't, quite honestly. Didn't have anything that could have got me into real heat, because we all know, man, listen, guns and drugs in the same building, you're looking at a mandatory 5 and probably closer to 10. And so that was always something I was very aware of. They kick your door in at, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm running out in my boxers thinking I'm getting robbed in my, kind of trap house, whatever you want to call it, where I was growing, and running around looking for weapons. Before I know it, they got the door kicked in. They're throwing you on your face, dragging you from either side, telling you to stop resisting. You got this one pulling over here. It's wild, man. It's a wild scene. And then obviously, cuffed and stuffed in the back of the car. And that's where things hit you and you realize this day ain't going to go the way you thought it was. Now it does get hairy in there because, listen, when you get raided, the first thing they want you to do is rat on everybody. Listen, that's essentially why I had warrants from the beginning, is because when I got caught with the 8 pounds, the dude basically gave me a business card. Happened on a Friday. He gives me a business card, says, call me on Monday with a name or we're pressing charges on you. So I call him on Monday with a name. I said, blah, blah, blah. Here's a name. I gave him the name of my lawyer. I said, this is my lawyer. This is the best I can do for you. I don't know what else you want from me. And this dude lost it, like literally on the phone, yelling at me, bro, you think this is a game? You think I'm playing with you, son? I was like, no, sir, they're playing a game. This is my life. Like, good luck. There's nothing I can do to help. So listen, mind you, that guy ends up being he ran the entire city of Easthampton. He was the police chief for the whole town after this whole raid. So he was well connected. He's actually the one that put an APB out on me after that. Found my car in Whately where I was growing. That's where they ended up raiding me. So, yeah, man, listen, I burnt some bridges along the way and didn't make a lot of friends, certainly in the law enforcement agencies. So when they did raid me again, and he was in my face, telling me what it was, of course. I'll never forget it. Matter of fact, I'll share this one little piece, right? So this is when he reads me my rights. You go back and look in the paperwork. It says he comes to read me my rights. So I'm sitting in the car, cuffed and stuffed, right? He comes out and says, "Hey, Mr. Thomasson, remember me? I'm the guy you told to go pound sand. Have a great day." And he closes the door and casually walks away. And like, it was just like that little message of like, yeah, careful who you fuck with. You think this is a game? You want to play little games? Give me these names like this. Here's something for you on the back end. So, hey, listen, he got me. And yeah, man, the raid sucked ass. It took me away from my family. I ended up serving a couple different bids, did 30 days, got out on bail, fought the case, was found guilty on the 8 pounds in the mail, went back in for another 40 or 50 days. I don't remember. I think I ended up serving 60, 70 days or whatever it was. But yeah, it was not great. I took a plea deal in the long run, took my 3 felonies and served whatever it was, 6 months out of a 2.5-year sentence. And they suspended 2 years. So as long as I didn't get in any trouble during probation, I was good. So that's what it looked like, man. It sucks. It's everything you see in the movies. They're coming in fully armed, guns in your face, yelling at you. You don't even barely have time to put your damn gotchis on. I'm telling you that much.
That sucks, dude. That's got to be scary.
Yeah, it was. It was. But listen, this is, for a lot of us, this is the life we live. We all knew it was, a possibility, right? We never expected it just for weed, but listen, I said in the last interview as well, for me personally, I know this. I know it was a wake-up call at the time when I need it. As I said, when I did get raided, there was some other things in that building that got me in trouble. There was about a 16th of cocaine and about a 16th of Molly that was in that building as well, which they caught me because they were bagged separately, said I was selling that also, which I wasn't. But I caught 2 felonies for dealing cocaine and Molly. And I had to hear in the courtroom, I had to hear them out loud say, "We believe Mr. Thomasson is manufacturing crack cocaine," because they found like a rock Molly, like MDMA rock. So, again, I heard some crazy things about me and what I was doing. And they were saying I was cooking all types of stuff in the building. Yeah, I was cooking Rick Simpson oil for my cancer patients. It was the only thing I've ever cooked in that building. So it was crazy, the whole process. And quite honestly, how uneducated the police were about CBD powder, right? Or about Rick Simpson oil, which quite honestly looks like heroin, right? Like, can we be honest about syringes of RSO? Like sketchy, right? Like, if you're a cop and you see syringes of RSO, that was one of the first questions they asked me. Like, what is all this? Fucking heroin? Like, make it easy. So, yeah, man, the whole process was kind of wild. But again, for me, I think I needed a wake-up call. It came in a way that certainly impacted my life and my relationship with my kids and baby mama and all those things. But I'm still here, man. I'm still chasing the dream. It was, a little blip in the road, and it's part of the story. But hopefully, again, it can lead to something great on the back end of that experience.
I've had a few blips myself, Michael. Let me slap your logo back up there. It's Mike Thomasson, Infuzed Productions, guys. And so that's where I think we kind of left it off right here on the last one. And I wanted to try to take it from here and tie this into the social equity program. And if you could, please, I don't know where you want to start that. Maybe you could tell us like how you found out about it or how you got involved in the social equity program in Massachusetts.
All right. Yeah, starting way back, I guess, at the beginning, because when I was researching the caregiver program in Massachusetts, again, it's crazy how much reading and research that I did when I found like cannabis in general. And so started looking into these other, legal ways of possibly doing things, including doing the cannabis events. And that just led me to searching online, finding the social equity program. We have the CCC website here in Massachusetts. Great resource for any information cannabis-wise that you need. So just in my searches of researching the laws and literally reading through the 600-page laws of cannabis laws here in Massachusetts, and just trying to find loopholes. Like my lawyer said, like I told you, I'm always trying to walk that line and finding loopholes in the industry, right? So just by reading through the laws, I was finding loopholes. One thing led to another. The social equity program, obviously, I was kind of a shoe-in for that with my arrest record. But other people that can take advantage of this program still, and if you are in Massachusetts and you're looking into the cannabis world, by all means, share a story, which is all you have to really do to be part of the social equity program, of how the war on drugs negatively impacted your life. So quite literally, if your dad or your brother was arrested, if anybody in your family was harassed for cannabis, if you yourself was pulled over and searched when you were 18 and harassed for a dime bag, all you really have to do is share your story on the CCC website, and you can apply for the social equity program. What the social equity program is for is people of color, women, people with arrest records like myself. Again, anybody who is negatively impacted by the war on drugs can and should apply for the social equity program. And what it does is it allows you kind of front door access to a lot of these licenses here in Mass, two of which they deem just for social equity applicants for the first 3 years, which a lot of time is passing. And trust me, some of this is a farce, the way they laid this out and what it looks like for us in reality.
We'll get there. Let's just talk about the program first, please.
No, we know. But it does allow someone like myself with limited resources. I don't have the ability to apply and pay rent on a building for 2 years while I'm doing an application, right? So, for instance, it waives the application fee in the state, which I think is $15,000. It waives the online application fee, which is another $5,000. So I'm saving 20 grand right off of rent money that I just don't have, right? So there is benefits to this program, including now they just launched these grants, the social equity grants. The first ones of Mass just went out in the past 60 days here for a lot of us. I received a $25,000 grant. People that I know have received $250,000 and $500,000 grants, depending on where you are in the licensing.
I think Dwayne mentioned that he got the $500,000, maybe.
Dwayne did, yeah.
That's good.
My homegirl Sammy did. I know Damaris did. A lot of us social equity people have been starting to get these grants, which is amazing. But really, it's just kind of making up for money already put into these businesses, which. Listen, I'm 6 years in. A lot of us are 5+ years into this process. So if you could imagine me having to pay rent, possibly employees, doing marketing, all these different things over the course of 6 years, my business would have failed before I ever got a license, which a lot of them do here in Mass. So at least this program allows someone like me to at least get through the application phase. Now, whether you get the license in the building and all that, we'll get there. But yeah, it's a step in the right direction.
Will you tell us about these training programs they did with like David Rabinovitz? David was on the show a couple years ago, and I know he taught the social these cohorts that they did. Will you tell people like what that looked like?
It looked a lot like if you ever took like a college course. I mean, it was good if you didn't know a lot about the cannabis industry. I will say that there was a lot of people that kind of went in and learned a lot. Again, for me, I've been studying this for a lot of years. I've been learning the ins and outs of the law, especially. So essentially what it is, you'll get a slideshow of information. You'll go through, learn all of these different key points in applying for a license, really. It helps you with some of the financial planning. It helps you with certainly getting through the licensing process and all of the applications that you have to jump through hoops to really get the license. So it does kind of help guide you through the whole process of getting licensed. So again, for a lot of people, it was necessary. For me, quite honestly, I sat through the classes, I did what I had to do, and then I took the test at the end, and I didn't have to really study anything or do a whole lot. And it was like a college refresher course for anybody. Get through it.
There's a test?
Yes. At the end of each learning lesson, so again, each cohort, I don't know how many people we had, 30, 40, 50 people, however many it is. Again, we all sit through the slideshow, and then at the end of the slideshow, you get a test on what you just learned. And so after each course, you are tested on your ability, and you do have to pass that test. If you get them wrong, you have to retest and learn what you're being taught. So again, super helpful, I think, for anybody who wasn't already doing a lot of their own research anyway. And for me, it was just part of what I needed to do to get to this step, which now, again, I'm provisionally licensed here in Massachusetts. So that puts me in line for that $250,000 grant now. So this next application phase, I'll be able to apply for that and see if I can get the wheels turning on this delivery thing.
What was it required for social equity folks to take that program through the state?
You know what? That is a really, really good question. I believe so. You do have to do a training course. Now, I don't know if you had to take that one specifically, but to get approved as a social equity person, no, you don't have to at all, because you're approved before you even get into those trainings. Now, going through the licensing process, that's a good question, actually. I don't know the answer to that, because I'm wondering, through the licensing process, did they even question whether I graduated that? Did I have to submit them a number? And I'll be honest, I have people that help me with this. Ezra, who you well know, he is a godsend to all of us in the social equity market, because he helps us with a lot of the application phase and the paperwork, which, listen, I'm vocationally educated, bro. I know how to grow a little weed. I know how to do a little breeding. I can buy and sell some shit. I can throw some events and put on some stuff, but man, paperwork ain't really man. So, like a guy like Ezra, man, a blessing out here. My lawyer, Marvin Cable, blessing out here. Like, these two men have gotten me through so much of this process, including when I had to go in front of the CCC for my special hearing because I was a felon. I had to sit through the CCC and give my case in front of their lawyers. And listen, they beat me down in that meeting. And at the end of the meeting, it was a no. And I had to go through the whole process again of getting my record sealed just to get back to this point. But here we are again, and just gonna keep plugging away, man. I'm gonna keep fucking going till the wheels fall off. You know how we do it.
Guys, it's Mike Thomasson here, Infuzed Productions. So yeah, and since my dad was arrested by the FBI, I've told this story a bunch of times. My dad was arrested by the FBI for smuggling hash, so that's why I had this particular interest into the social equity programs. And oh man, what do you mind if I quote you real quick? I'm going to read a quote that you told me, and I'm hoping you're going to expand on this.
Wow. Okay, hit me.
You said they gave us a free ticket to a ride we can't get on. I'd love to know what you meant by that, Michael.
That is a good quote. I'm not going to lie. I love that one. I've been using it for a while, so I appreciate you throwing it back to me. So yes, a lot of the social equity program. Now, again, I'll put the caveat on this that now they are introducing these grants, which to me is a game changer, right? But for the 5 years leading up to these grants coming out, the program itself did feel like a ticket to a ride you can't get on. So you walk into the new park and you're excited to get on the roller coaster and you got your free ticket. And you get there and you realize you're not tall enough to ride this ride, and so they send you back.
Oh God!
You have a free pass, right, to get into an industry that you can't afford to, short of doing a bunch of fundraising and knowing people that have money, which again, I don't really come from that world. That's not ever something I knew. And so for me, it was difficult imagining how to kind of crack into this business. And so they give you this ticket and they give you these other two businesses, right? Which they deemed specific for social equity only. Only social equity can have the home delivery business here in Mass and the social consumption business here in Mass. Now, social consumption I know well because Infuzed Productions has been putting on cannabis-themed events for 5+ years now, and was the first one here in Greenfield to get approved to do cannabis consumption at an event openly at the fairgrounds here in Greenfield. And so I've been on the forefront of that world for a while, but guess what? Here in Massachusetts, there is no existing license available for social consumption. And the only delivery businesses, as you will know once you talk to Dwayne, I won't get into that. I'll let him cover all of that. The only delivery businesses, unless you're in Boston or a metropolis that is doing quite well, just financially in general, business model doesn't work great for us here in Western Massachusetts. Everybody drives a car. Everybody goes grocery shopping. The model for the home delivery layout, there's not a ton of people buying Uber Eats and things here in Western Mass, right? And so the two licenses that were kind of granted to these social equity people, one of them ain't making no money, which is the delivery thing, and the other one hasn't even been released, which I've been trying to push for forever here in Massachusetts. And so yeah, at times it definitely feels like this whole licensing process is kind of a farce for, the disenfranchised, so to speak. So yeah, it's hasn't been rough to this point. Hopefully these grants can start to change that narrative.
Can I tell you, it kind of felt to me, and I liked your quote better, but it kind of felt to me like they were putting like the most vulnerable people in the front of the line to jump into a dumpster fire.
Yes, that too. Sure, you get a free ticket to find out how expensive it is to keep a building open while you apply for something. That's really kind of what it was. And so, luckily for me, again, I'm born and raised here. I've been doing cannabis forever. I have some great business connections with my lawyer, with consultants, with local business owners. One of which, shout to Mickey here in Greenfield, who let me apply for this license using her business address for this whole time. And I haven't had to pay her a cent. And once we got to provisional, then at that point, we were going to talk about getting into an agreement for the license. And so I've been able to kind of work my local magic to not have all those crazy expenses. But don't get it twisted, man. I've put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into getting to this point. I've had to pay for, business plans to be written and all these different things. And so, yeah, it does get costly. And it gets very costly for anybody who's not connected and doesn't have those kind of ins with lawyers or ins with, people that you can rent buildings from. So use your connections and use all your people wisely is what I would say to people.
Yo, and I was going to save the events for the end because that sounds like the most fun part. And I like to leave on a more fun note. And I think that would be cool. And the social consumption stuff. But, and especially, in states, the price of real estate here in Vermont is going up. I don't know what it looks like down in Massachusetts, but goddamn, man, like even just finding a location to have a business at seems like an expensive proposition. And like you said, and I've talked to a couple people like this who have had to pay rent in a building for like a year before they're even operational. Like that, those bills add up quickly, Mike.
Listen, that is like all too often the story here in Massachusetts. Honestly, so many of these businesses are coming to Massachusetts. And listen, early on, the numbers were great, right? I mean, people were growing for, $400 to $800 a pound, depending on how good you are at it. And you were selling your pounds for 2,000 plus, 2,400 at times, right? So the margins at first were beautiful. Now, not so much, right? Like, listen, the market has it's been a race to the bottom. It looks a lot like, Cali did and Colorado did, with all of these people kind of fighting for that bottom line dollar. And now already the dispensaries have $80 ounces, $90 ounces. You're not growing it for much less than that. So again, it's just like in the food industry, right? It always comes back to who's that screwing? It's screwing the farmer. And in this industry, it's screwing the grower, because now they're going to have to grow more, which is not going to be as good, which not only leads to the demise of quality cannabis in the market, but also kind of crunches any sort of hope of like making margins in the industry, which, right, like if you're the grower, you need margins. There's electric bills. There's a lot that goes into that, and you're one crop away from failing every crop, right? And so, it's been pretty shitty to see that race to the bottom, but it is what the market is, and you kind of got to ride that wave. I think it'll balance out. I hope it'll balance out once education kind of comes into play. I look at it a lot like the beer industry did, right? Like nobody ever knew a craft beer existed until 10, 12 years ago, and now there's lines of hundreds of people waiting to get a fucking 4-pack. So I do think cannabis, as people learn about quality cannabis and they kind of make that transition with the education piece, we might get that piece of it back a little bit and regain some of those margins. But no, right now it's a battle, man. And it's a margins battle for sure. And the winner is who can grow big fat juicy nugs real cheap and who can buy and sell real cheap. And neither of those models exist for the social equity person right now, unfortunately.
Can I ask you, I want to jump in here because I know we talked about sort of like the taxing of legal weed and some of the regulations. And one question that I really like to throw at people, it's a nice open-ended question. But if you could rewrite the legislation yourself, if you were in charge of all of the shit, what would you change? What would you keep? And what would maybe you throw away completely, man? Because it does seem like a lot of these rules came from the same places and it's not working anywhere, really, for the farmers, as you said, which I think is the metric of what if the industry is healthy or not. Are the growers doing well? I think. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Mark.
That's a great question. That's a great point too. Farmers doing well obviously would be good for everybody. What would I change? What would I do differently? All right. Well, let's highlight this by saying that I am vocationally educated. I have no business making or changing any laws anywhere. But let's say we could wave the magic wand, right? First and foremost, I think keeping, out-of-state investment out of the industry, especially for the initial period, would have been amazing. They have somewhat laws in place, some of these 50% laws, like social equity, for instance, have to maintain 51% of the license, so they can't allow kind of out-of-state to come take that over. But necessarily do that for all these other large licenses. We all know the True Leaves, the Cure Leaves, all these other big out-of-state businesses. I think that would be the first change that I would have loved to see, is kind of reserve this industry for those of us who were in state and pursuing this since before it was legal. Possibly roll out this social equity program with a little more authority, I would say. Maybe do the grants before you even roll out the program, knowing that those of us who can't afford it would just be waiting for the grants anyway. Kind of seems like, putting the cart before the horse, so to speak, with all of that. So those are the two major changes I would like to see for sure. And I would certainly love to see us take more the model of like Maine, for instance. I think Maine did a really good job of allowing the locals to essentially become their own growers and their own dispensaries, so to speak, because they can grow on their own land and sell directly to the dispensaries the quality craft cannabis that they grow on their own land. So it like incentivizes those small craft home grows because anybody essentially can do business with the dispensary. So I would like to see a little more openness, with that. I think it would help keep a lot of the out-of-state market, which, listen, let's be honest, that still thrives in the underground industry, right? The out-of-state market still runs the underground in Mass. It's all still Cali bud. It's all still Oklahoma bud. It's all still Maine bud. It still runs the underground world. And I think if you would have opened it up a little bit more like Maine, we would start to see some more kind of in-house growth, I guess. So, those are a few things I could point to. There's probably, a very long list of things that we could change about the social equity program specifically, and about the licensing here in Mass. But those are the few things I would actually point to right off rip.
Let me ask you, since you mentioned it, this wasn't on my list, but the direct-to-consumer sales has certainly been a hot topic here in Vermont. A lot of the local, there's within a 20-mile drive of me, there's probably 8 or 9 or 10 growers around me, and it's cool. And they would like to just be able to sell their product direct to their customers without having to go through a dispensary. What are your thoughts on direct-to-consumer, Mike?
It's how it should have been all along. Hopefully it's how it will be one day. A lot of us spent our entire lives building up a customer base, only to see it disappear in the last 2 years to $80 dispensary ounces, right? I went through my entire adult life, quite literally, making a living off of cannabis. This plant has been amazing to me. It has allowed me to be a stay-at-home dad for my whole life and raise my children. I've been able to accomplish a lot. Now, again, took some lumps along the way, as well as anybody, but those are moments that I cherish, time that I know I would never get back. This is all for the kids anyway, so to be able to have had that and experience that, I wouldn't give that up for the world, man. So I'm eternally grateful for what you just mentioned gave me, that one-on-one connection with customers, building a customer base, being able to, educate your customers, and just having that connection with people. I mean, that alone can be life-changing. And I can't tell you how many times I've just walked through the town of Northampton, bumped into 3 or 4 people I know, and have my kids look at me like I'm the goddamn mayor of the town. You know what I mean? Like, social aspect of cannabis cannot be overlooked, should not be overlooked. It has given all of us connections that have lasted a lifetime. And I think it's going to continue to do that. But it was all built off of the premise that you're talking about, which is that one-on-one interaction, not in a store. I mean, how many grocery clerks do you have a great interaction with and have formed lifelong ties with, right? I mean, let's be honest. How many people are you going to walk into a dispensary and form lifelong connections with the dude checking you out? It's not going to happen. So I'm grateful for that connection. I do think that's how it should be. I wish there was a way that we could shape it that way. And I guess the closest thing that we do have to that still here in Mass would be the caregiver program, because now you are allowed to be a caregiver. Last I checked, I think for 3 patients. So progress on that front, at least. And maybe that'll change one day. Maybe it's more. Don't even quote me on that. I could be throwing out false numbers. It's been so long.
I won't hold your feet to the fire on that one. So I do want to also ask you about, before we do the event stuff, I'm hoping we could close with that, but I do want to ask you also about like social consumption, because that's been on the table as well here. I don't know. Some of the stuff I've seen has not sounded super promising, but I don't know what it looks like in Massachusetts. And it seems like a lot of people, we got dispensaries now, all over the fucking place, and people want to smoke in public. And, I got to tell you, when I was down in Massachusetts, everyone was smoking in public when I came down to Boston. So, the idea of the social lounge was a little weird, since everyone's just smoking on the street anyway. But Yeah. Curious what you're thinking about social consumption down there, Mike.
Yeah, it's happening regardless of what they say, clearly, as we all know. But legally, right, there is supposedly this license that is on the docket that keeps getting talked about for social consumption lounges and event licenses, much like Infuzed Productions does, to allow us to do social consumption and allow these dispensaries to sell off-site, right? That's the key. For me, I've been doing these events for so long, and the biggest problem is ROI for these companies. They want to sponsor a show. They want to be there and enjoy the fun like everybody else. We've done some amazing shows. I've got to meet some of my personal childhood idols over the course of the last 5 years. So obviously these businesses want to, reap the benefits of having 5, 10, 20,000 people in one place at one time, but they would also like to be able to sell to those people while they're there. When they're watching every other vendor line up and be able to sell to people, why shouldn't they be able to as well? You got beer vendors, clothes vendors, everybody, food vendors, right? So cannabis is the only one missing out on the, idea of this sales off of site for dispensaries. And so supposedly these licenses are coming out in Massachusetts. It's only a matter of time before they do drop them. I look to try to be one of the first in line for one of those licenses when they do drop. I think it will be a game changer for me in the event space to allow that, and to have a hold on that as a social equity, I think would be pretty big, to be quite honest, because that's low-hanging fruit, right, for anybody that is coming from out of state, which there are a few kind of bigger events that have already popped up. We're all very familiar with the Flower Expo. Dope event, run very clean, very well. But they're out-of-state cats too, man, and they're chasing what I'm chasing, and they've got way more resources to get there. And so to me, this is kind of my opportunity to at least have a leg up for that industry, this social equity license. And so I'm hoping that does come out sooner rather than later, and I can chase that dream and do the same thing I'm doing for my delivery. Be able to chase that dream and get the grants and push that through to success as well. So we'll see.
And yeah, so I'm saving the events for dead last. Will you tell us about the delivery program, please? Because I have a number of friends up here in Vermont who were interested in getting involved in it. And I thought that I don't know, the states that I've seen where they've created delivery programs, it seems like they made it sort of unnecessarily complicated. And it seemed like if you want to deliver weed, really all you need is a car and some weed. And, maybe you could tell people the details of the delivery program down there in Mass.
Cute. Yeah, if only it was that easy like the good old days where you just needed a car and some weed and you needed to know a guy. Like that was about it. Quite honestly, especially early on, it's kind of been a nightmare from launch. They have all these regulations like you need 2 drivers in the car, right? One to drive the car and one to get out and deliver the weed, I guess, right? Like so. You clearly need cameras in all of your cars. You need tracking on all of your cameras. You need cameras in the building. So, everything, you need the GPS tracking system, which has to be tracked through the third-party tracking system, which runs through the CCC, or they have at least access to that, right? So, everything is lined up to cost money, quite honestly. And so not easy to start, right? Especially for delivery program. Again, just buying a car, paying the insurance on the car, the gas for the car, all the bells and whistles for cameras and GPS and all that. Having a building that you then have to pay rent for. You have to obviously keep your building well stocked with materials. So how much materials can you keep in stock? Another topic which clearly you can highlight with Dwayne. I know some of that has been some of his biggest struggles is when you can't buy weed, as we all know who've been buying and selling weed, if you're going there asking for a front, you're going to get beat up on the price. And so if you don't come to the table with the ability to purchase product, obviously you don't have the ability to negotiate. And so that's been an issue. So there's a lot of kind of hiccups. I think now that 2-driver rule at least is out. All those other things are still in effect. It makes it very difficult for, us, again, as disenfranchised people to just launch a business. Most of these cannabis businesses are not starting in Massachusetts for less than $1.5 to $3.5 million, somewhere in the range. And so, to think that we're going to start a delivery business for, again, my grant was $25,000. Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate it. But what does that really do in the grand scheme of things?
I mean, if you're saying that the startup cost for a business is in that range, and they're giving like 1%, what was that? 25,000 to 2.5 million or 3 to start a business? Like, that's, boy, oof.
In the bucket, right? And so, yeah, that's tough. And again, now they got these other grants. If I can do all my licensing steps correct and I can get these grants, then I got a shot. Then I got a real shot. So that is up to me, though. That's up to me to make the connections, to be able to pull that off. And again, for my vocationally educated ass, it's taken about 6 years. Some people get through it a lot quicker. But I also, again, had an uphill battle to fight with all my charges and the felonies and all that. And so, hell of a journey. Feel like I'm getting close. I can at least see the light, damn it, now. So, yeah, keep chasing that shit.
Well, here, and let's slap that up again. Michael Thomasson, guys, Infuzed Productions. And, you said it felt like an uphill journey. Seemed like it was supposed to be easier for guys like you, Mike, which is really what kind of blew my mind about the social equity program. It still seems like everyone is struggling. Even some of the folks that are making money are struggling. So, I don't know. That seemed a little wild to me.
For sure they are. There's a lot of very savvy business people that are really good at making money. That are struggling in this industry right now. And so imagine us, who are not necessarily great business people, have not been kind of through the grind of that. For us to figure it out on the fly is even harder. A lot of these people are coming in with millions of dollars of backing, very smart, savvy business people backing them up that can help lead the way for them. Mm-hmm. A lot of us don't have that, dude. We're out here winging it, and lucky for me, again, I've got connections that are very, very valuable. But I think of people even less fortunate than myself that aren't tied into some of these people and trying to get through the application phase on your own. It's a lot, dude. It's a lot, and you have to educate yourself a lot. You have to reach out for help. You have to pay certain people to do certain things. It is an uphill journey. And so I don't know what my journey's like versus the journey of somebody who has a few $1 million backing them. Listen, the application phase is the same. They might be better at certain things. I know this. When I walk into a lot of these meetings with all these business people and all these investors and all this stuff, which I've done a lot, quite often I'm the most cannabis educated person in the room. I know more about terpenes and Rick Simpson oil and the process of growing than a lot of these people, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything in these rooms, because all these people feel like there's 100 dudes like me that they could pay to come grow. There's 100 dudes that they can pay to come make shatter or create a cart or whatever the case may be. And so I might be the most cannabis educated person, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything in the world of business. So I'm trying to kind of graduate myself from being, yes, a wise weed man to being a wise weed businessman. So
is that frustrating at all to you, Mike? Because this is one thing I've said a number of times, is that the people who seem to know the most about this shit seem to have the fewest seats at the table, and the voices that are maybe getting the most airtime really don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And to me, that's been frustrating, and I'm not even involved in the industry, so I'm wondering if that's frustrating to you at all.
It is. I think that's probably the nature of a lot of businesses. There's a few talking heads, and the rest of us are just kind of trying to do the work, right? I by no means am the face of of cannabis in any way in Massachusetts. I try to stay relevant in the game, at least. I'm lucky enough that Infused Productions has brought me some small notoriety and made me some great connections, right? But yeah, dude, it is pretty frustrating to watch, especially, you know, these big MSOs come in with huge backing and be able to execute a business plan that has worked for them in other states and in other businesses. And it's also, you know, part of me wants to hate on that for sure, but also they have what I'm trying to get. And so for me to just only hate on it without trying to, you know, gain some knowledge from it, or, you know, I caught a lot of flack, I won't lie, going back to my Infused Productions days, right? I come from the underground. My Infused Productions days have been and always will be towards the local grower. But I also, through some of my events, had some sponsorships from True Leaf, from Curaleaf, from some of these other industry giants that are not very pleasant to people like me, okay? Flat out, right? Like, they have signed paperwork to try to crumble people like me. So my idea, my thought is, you know, you keep your friends close, you keep your enemies closer, right? Yeah, they got what I want. I'm going to take their money, whatever it was for sponsorships for some of these cannabis cups that I run, and hopefully give people like myself and other people an opportunity to compete with them for a cannabis cup and to compete with them for a trophy to win. And so that's what I did. And yeah, I took sponsorship dollars from some of these big companies, and I will continue to, and I will continue to put that towards hopefully some of these other events that do highlight, like the Homie Grown Cup for the Homie Collective, which I'm year 3 now of running, right? Use some of these sponsorship dollars to help promote some of us local growers, which we did for a lot of these other cups, man. And we gave local growers a chance to compete against and win cups against dispensaries. Because, listen, we all know it because we've been in the game forever. I still haven't got a weed from a dispensary that blew away the homies' weed, or stuff that I've grown, or stuff that I know people that I know have grown. So that's what it is. The local dudes are still killing it quality-wise, right? Now we need to help these local dudes establish a real business, get in the market full-time, because this is taking the trajectory of what beer and alcohol did. And I don't know about you, but I don't know a single dude making money in his basement brewing booze right now. It's over. It's over for the home grower. It will be in the next 5 to 10 years. So we have to be on the forefront of the business. Is it frustrating to see all these companies? Yes. But I'm trying to chase them.
Great points, Mike. You left me speechless for a second there. Let's do so. I want to dig into the events here. I'm going to throw some of these at you because they were listed in your bio here. Maybe, let's see, the Grumpy Cup.
Grumpy Cup was amazing, really geared towards veterans. It was the first multi-tiered cup. I might be using the wrong language. Basically, it was all these different things combined in with this event. So he had a barbecue competition, a cannabis cup, he had a car show, we did a comedy show. So all of these things and a weekend full of fun. My guy, shout out to Phil, the Grumpy Giant, for putting those on and bringing me into it. 3 years of amazing fun. Unfortunately, won't be back this year. But man, some great times, great memories at the Grumpy Cup, dude.
Word. Let's talk about the Homie Collective Campout.
Homie Collective Campout. Yes. So this will be my 3rd year helping the Homie Collective put on the Homie Grown Cup, which again is a bunch of local growers, competitors. When I say local, I mean all over New England. We had dudes from Maine, Rhode Island, all over the place entering these competitions. So yeah, all information, you can definitely go to the Homie Grown, the Homie Collective Campout website and get all the information for this. You can see my posts on Infused.Productions on Infused Productions on Facebook. But yeah, we are gearing up for another.
Ooh. Hope I didn't lose you there.
Festival scene, campouts, music, food, fun, craziness, everything you can imagine. If you ever been to a festival, you already know what it's going to be. But yeah, we're back at it for another year.
How about the Rollup Festival?
Rollup, man. Spencer, shout to 4Life Productions, Spencer, Reggie, Aaron, Rick, all those dudes, man. These guys have been killing it forever. I met Spencer years ago, lucky enough to get tied in on the production side with him. So he handles all of the staging, sound, lighting, production of so many events here in not only New England, but across the country, quite honestly. And the dude's going global. So Spencer started with the Rollup, which we did years back. We had huge names on the ticket: Waka Flocka, Redman and Method Man, Grizz, just some big names, and followed that up with some huge names on the backside doing events over the past few years. I mean, we've had The Lock, Styles P, Jada, all them. We had Wyclef Jean, Action Bronson. I mean, the list, again, I told you I met some of my childhood idols. This is what I mean, dude. I'm a big hip-hop head. I'm stuck in the 90s hip-hop world, have been forever. I've got to meet so many of these dudes over the past 5 years, bro. It's been amazing. The events has been a blessing for connections. It's allowed us to have some unforgettable moments. Man, I wish my main Infuzed Productions page hasn't been canceled and kicked off Instagram, because we had some classic footage up there, which I'll have to revamp. But standing on stage with Styles P, throwing eighths and quarters off the stage, we had buckets of hundreds of eighths that we're just throwing into the crowd, man, and it was just dope, bro. So the event's been a life changer.
Oh, let me tell you, sorry to cut you off, dude, but I got to smoke a blunt with Inspector Deck on New Year's Eve a couple of years ago, and I was just like, he handed it to me. He was like, "Do you want to hit this?" I was like, "Yeah, well, yes, Mr. Deck, of course."
Bro, unbelievable. I don't even know how I didn't mention it in my rant. With my dude Chad and Jake, we got to do the first official after party for the Wu-Tang when they were in Vegas. They did their Vegas show. We got to do the first official after party. So, man, I got to meet just about all those cats at this point. Fucking unreal, bro. Who would have thought, bro, me, little white kid from Western Massachusetts, rocking out to 36 Chambers back in the day, that not only would I get to be in the booth where they made their fucking legendary album, but I would get to meet, 3/4 of the crew, bro, has been kind of unreal.
It was fun. I was fanboying a little. I don't fanboy much because I don't meet really that many celebrities, but I was like, yes, Mr. Deck, I will definitely hit your blunt.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hard not to when you meet legends, bro. It's wild.
Yeah. Did we do the Fyre Cup? Did I get that in there?
Fyre Cup. All right. So check it out. That is kind of highlighting my story from earlier, almost where that me finding that hate from my street life colliding with this new life of doing events legally, right? So Fyre Cup was my first attempt at a completely legal cannabis cup. The idea was the cup would be sold at the dispensary, and we would be competing all of the legal growers here in Mass against one another, right? And so what it allowed me to do is, yes, highlight local quality grown weed from legal growers, and also do a free community concert, which we got to have some pretty dope names. Once again, me being a 90s hip-hop kid, I had Chic Luch there from the Locks highlighting. I had Smith and Wesson. If anybody knows 90s hip-hop, and Boot Camp Click and Smith and Wesson, like that to me was, I got to meet these dudes, fucking chill with them in the back. That event also led me some other partnerships. My dude Stacks, what we now have the Racks partnership. Just again, the crazy connections that you get in pulling these events off is just kind of mind-boggling, man. And so yeah, I Again, got to do a free community concert for the Fyre Cup, and got to highlight some decent quality weed that was actually grown here in Mass in the legal market. It does exist, people. There are some people growing good weed in the legal market. Now, good luck finding it on the shelves, but it's out there, damn it.
Who are they? Anybody you want to shout out? And by the way, I got to tell you, since you mentioned Smith & Wesson, you got to check out SK. He made an album with them. He's a beat producer up here. I sent you a text message too. We'll get back to that. But who is? Because I'll tell you, Mike, I've been to Massachusetts. Haven't had any weed that really impressed me out of the dispensaries down there.
Okay. Clever play on words. Impressed. Impressed grows some pretty good weed. Ralphie G, kind of social media guru right now. He's very, very out there in the social media world. But listen, he came in on the team. They grow some fire bud. I can't deny it. I've seen it. I've smoked it. He's handed me some himself. Can't deny the quality of that bud. OMG, some local cats growing some quality bud. High Ledges, I'm not even sure if dude's still in business, man, honestly. I wish I could name more. I wish I could highlight 100 people doing amazing work here locally. The truth is, there's not supposed to be monopolies on the market, but a lot of these big dogs got big grows. They grow big weed. Let me do shout out 253, honestly, right here in Turner's Falls. They are one of the kind of locally grown, locally produced, I would say more quality in the market. A lot of what they have, they keep in-house. They don't have a lot of other competitors on their shelves. And I've smoked some 253. They're actually some of the bud we were throwing off stage with Styles P. So shout to my man Seth over there at 253. But man, in general, there should be a lot more. I wish there was 10 names I could say off the top of my head that were local grown fire, man. Hopefully we get there one day.
Old Grove, Vermont. Yep. Word up. There's one. I got one. So Michael, I'm getting towards the end of my shit here, and I'm going to go to Burlington and just have a nice night with the homies over at Green Door Studio, who got the artwork in the background, the bear over here you probably can't see, and the fucking dopey and asshole. Those are the homies. I want to, though, here, let me slap this up one more time. Michael Thomasson, Infused Productions. At the end of the show, I always like to give my guests a little time here. If there's anything we missed that you think is super important, I'd sure love if you chimed in here. And then I'm going to give you some time for shameless plugs or shout outs at the end. But did we miss anything there?
Brother, I will have to applaud you on doing a very thorough and amazing, not only one job, but two jobs. We got 2 damn interviews done this week. So, man, listen, I think you've highlighted just about everything that I would want to highlight. I appreciate you putting in the work for the social equity crew. All the connections that I tried to supply you that hopefully kind of will lead down other paths, right? I applaud you for putting in the work, man. There's not a lot of people that are putting in the time and energy to highlight social equity people. The struggle is real for us, man. So kind of any notoriety we can get that, the stuff that you've provided for us, it means a lot, brother. It really does. There's nobody really covering these stories and getting us the platform. So I appreciate that. That's one thing I do want to highlight. And let me just shout out all the other people like Dwayne, people like Sam, people like Damaris, people like Devin, all across the state. Like, there is a lot of social equity applicants who are trying to do this thing right. And it ain't easy, man. It really is not easy. A lot of them I've watched try to do it right and fall by the wayside already and try to come up and already fail. And so, listen, shout to the ones that are left. We're going to keep plugging away. There is a spot for us at the table with some of these dudes who have come in and taken over. And it's up to us to find that spot and make it work. So we're going to keep trying until we do.
I think that's a great place to leave it right there, guys. Michael Thomasson, Infused Productions. Stick around for a minute if you would, Michael. But I'm your host, Caleb Teskey. Remember, the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Great show, Mike.